Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today we have a video courtesy of Griffin Keeper in the Tier 3 Vampire. You can see playing big race, standard battle, and Griffin is heading over to Destroyer Alley. And it's been a while since I've had some lower tier gameplay. A lot of people seem to send in stuff from right up at the top, and I personally don't play a lot of low tier. So it's refreshing to see a different ship and the Vampire itself. You know, this is going to be a very strong game, and, you know, quite often at these lower tiers, there's certain ships you expect. You know, at Tier 3, St. Louis replays, they happen quite often. Tier 4, the Clemson. Tier 5, you have, like, the Kamikaze. Tier 2, you've got the Umikaze. And Tier 1, you have the Black Swan. Point is, there's a couple ships that always seem to perform well. And I think it's a mix of the ships being strong, but also forgiving. You know, particularly in the St. Louis's case, though that has changed a little bit with some of the armor changes she received a while back. She's no longer the tank she used to be. You know, there was a day where St. Louis versus South Carolina, the St. Louis just won. It had better armor because of how they had modeled the coal bunkers. Now, obviously, one of the unique things about the Vampire is these single fire torpedoes. And that's the Brits in general. And they can be very useful in certain situations where, you know, you want them all going down one line because you're very confident an enemy ship is sailing exactly where that lead indicator says. There's other situations where it can be a detriment because it's kind of a all or nothing. But when they do land, it can be violent. Beyond that, the Vampire doesn't have a ton going for it. You know, its detection bigger than its torp range. It doesn't do a ton special. It's not a super strong gunboat. It's not a super stealthy boat, but it's a decent enough all-arounder. And with 4 guns, as long as you're thinking ahead about where you want them aimed, like any of these low-tier DDs, you're going to be able to get some damage out. And you can see already starting to work down the Samson. You can hear the torpedo alert. So the Samson may have just guess fired or potentially aimed them at him right away. Now as Griffin kind of breaks the main line of sight to his fleet between him and the Samson, he pops his smoke. And this is a really smart play because all those allies are going to be spotting the Samson who had fired his guns, and Griffin's just going to be safe. And with one ship down, a good start. You can see the team managed to kill a cruiser off on the other flank, and things are looking up. You have a G101 on the enemy team there, rushing this Bellerophon. I still can't pronounce that word right, no matter how many times people tell me. And you can see BB just getting destroyed. That's one of the kind of frustrating things that can happen at this tier. Destroyers can get very bold very quick, and because of the small map size and generally good island cover, you're able to come out so close that you're just able to wreck ships. Now, it's not without skill, and you have to time when you do that, or you're going to die in exchange. And a bit of an interesting choice here to have AP loaded. Don't know if it was a fat finger or just a choice to use it because, hey, you know, a DD. But it does switch back to the HE, which in general I just like using, particularly in DD on DD fights, because you always have that chance of, you know, breaking an enemy gun or their engine or anything really. It's just that improved chance because of the shells. Picks up first kill, and things are just getting better. 4 kills to 2. The enemy team hasn't really made an advance anywhere, and this Dresden, he's really overextending in the middle of the map. And that's one of those things that you definitely see happen a lot of this tier, is the ships that, kind of like tanks, it's like, oh, I'm in a warship, I get to, and they just sail forward thinking that's kind of how you're best supposed to play it, and getting yourself singled out, definitely a quick way to die in this game. Doesn't matter what ship you're in, you're going to find yourself on the bottom of the ocean. Now, it is worth noting here that Griffin is using standard consumables. You see so many replays partially because they are higher tier, where everyone just uses premium everything because the advantage of the extra charges and quicker reloads. But no, in this case, Griffin is running barebone stock modules and has been doing just fine. If you don't rely on the mods too much, it can go quite well. Now that enemy Dresden, he's managing to get away, dodging some torpedoes. Enemy Samson just charged in at the V-25 or vice versa. Somehow that V-25 is still alive. I do not understand that because that's pretty much a one-hit kill for anybody. But somehow he survives, and the Samson looks like he is going to be getting around this corner. Fresh target for Griffin to deal with. And finally that V-25 gets finished off. You can see Griffin putting his torps in the water, spreading them out a bit before really starting the gun engagement. And fortunately, the Samson, not looking this way at all, gonna definitely give Griffin a couple volleys before the return fire starts. And with the hit point advantage, this should be another easy kill. And at these low tiers, even if you're not getting huge damage numbers, it doesn't take long to knock a destroyer out. Even 1,000 damage per volley, that Samson's only got 2 more hits left in him. And here he goes. Second kill, up to 15,000 damage. The Dresden is charging back in, and the smoke is almost ready. In the meantime, though, things have gone awry. You have a team kill that's occurred. The team's just got obliterated up on that northeastern flank. So there's definitely going to need to be some work. They're only down by a ship, and that's about to even up as this Dresden goes down, but it's safe to say that South Carolina shouldn't be surviving that engagement. You've got a Pan-Asian DD in behind them, a couple battleships surrounding them. The South Carolina should die at some point here. And with 3 kills on the board, Griffin's looking good for potentially a run at a Kraken. You know, 4 ships left on the enemy team. He needs 2 of them, and reasonably, assuming the South Carolina goes down kind of quickly as I expect him to, that is in the cards. Friendly Samson starting to charge in, and the only other ship is this full health Bogatyr, which is a decent enough ship. It can really put the damage out if it's left alone. The one thing I found in the Bogatyr was it is soft. It can die quickly. And there goes the South Carolina. So now it's 4 on 3. And the Samson's kind of getting out ahead. And to add on to it, he's firing his guns at the Farang. Or Farang. Which just means everyone kind of knows where he is now. So he's forced to use his smoke and try and disengage. Now the Samson has a huge advantage on this enemy Pan-Asian DD in that he doesn't have to worry about torps. And a bit of an interesting choice to just kind of fire off like that. There's always the risk that you get detected, but I think just based on the fact that the enemy ships were firing, you could see the shells but not the ships, means there was no mutual line of sight, and with the reduced range, I mean, that St. Louis wouldn't have spotted him anyways. So right now, what I would be thinking is I'd go for this Pan-Asian DD. He wasn't on full health. He was last seen more or less alone, and that's really the thing you want to target. That's what I'm always thinking when I'm playing. I'm sure Griffin's thinking it too. Personally, I'd probably be holding fire. You're not really going to get a lot of damage in on these battleships, and you're just kind of announcing your position. But so far, so good. No one's detected him. And that tells you a couple things about where that enemy DD is. It means he either retreated up here, or, as he has, down to the south. Now with this Turenne coming around the corner, perfect opportunity to use these torpedoes. You can see Griffin slowing up and just waiting. He's waiting for that lead indicator to clear the edge of land. It looks like the Turenne is speeding up. Because of the close range, it's unlikely that he's really going to create a huge separation in where he was and where that acceleration was going to take him. The torpedo's just grazing past the edge of that island. The enemy destroyer has been taken out, and that means a huge advantage for Griffin here and the friendly Samson, Captain Nico. The torpedoes, well, they're looking decent. 1, 2, come on, a third would be amazing. Unfortunately, doesn't connect. And this would be a perfect time, just pop down that smoke and just work your guns a bit. But with no one shooting at him, sees no need to use the smoke and just continues to focus down this terrain. And as you momentarily see that one ship aiming at him, he hits the T key, gets the smoke going out, and is still safe to just sit here and look for fire. Unfortunately, with that torpedo volley, he did not manage any floods. And that definitely hurts because reasonably this terrain could have a damage control range. Bogatyr gets blasted there. One more friendly ship gone, and now it's 2 destroyers versus a pair of battleships in St. Louis. And St. Louis is definitely one of the natural predators of low-tier DDs. One big striking disadvantage is its speed, and obviously its detectability. It's going to be hard for that St. Louis to sneak up on these guys, but if they do get spotted, they'll be able to put out some big damage. The fire on this enemy battleship taking its toll, and another kill. Now with this Nassau coming in, you can pretty much be assured Griff is gonna do exactly what he did before. You can see this enemy, or friendly, Samson just put his torpedoes on, and basically what that should tell you in this position is that Nassau has to keep sailing in a straight line. He doesn't really have the option to turn, so Griffin backs up far enough to get the torpedoes between that friendly wreck and the land, and just lets the fish go. The Nassau eats a couple torps from the Samson. You can see already another volley in the water, and this is looking like this could be this end of the ship. That many torpedoes, that close. One more, there it is, picks up the Kraken, 50,000 damage, and now things are looking good. If the friendly Samson can go dark, they just have to avoid this St. Louis, and they win. That's the situation they're in. And I don't know if it's trying to help or just trying to get some more damage in. Griffin does start firing his guns, and I do think he was trying to pull some attention, but for some reason the Samson opens fire again. Now this is definitely one of those things you run into more often than not at lower tier, but it happens at all tiers, and it's players not understanding they've already got the win. This game is over. 423, 329, the points will keep ticking up. The St. Louis can't do anything. Problem is, because he couldn't hold his fire, the Samson got focused down by the Cleveland, and now Griff's got to do something. The team's on his back, full health St. Louis. Things are not going to be pretty if he gets detected. And really here, the goal isn't to kill. A lot of people would be thinking that, but with 6 minutes left, all you have to do is edge into that enemy cap, and you're going to be able to delay their cap points and slowly close that gap. You know, as you can see, 2 points every 6 seconds, which means 20 points per minute. It's only going to take 2 minutes of sitting in the enemy cap to even this game up. Now, Griff does decide to go on the offensive here, smartly using the edge of land. He had the St. Louis detected, basically waited until he knew this edge of land would block him and the St. Louis to fire his guns. Now, unfortunately, with no allies, St. Louis quickly goes dark just as he did, and sadly, none of the shells hit. You always hope for like a cheeky fire or something in that situation. Force the St. Louis to either let it burn or damage control, and it gives you better chance for your torpedoes to really cause some damage, both with their alpha and their flood. Now the main thing that Griffin has to be careful of here is just maintaining his detection. He can see that leader mark on the torpedoes rapidly coming over, so he just fires them at the edge of land. I think anticipating that the St. Louis is going to try to chase down his last known position. But the St. Louis, I think, kind of has a sense of what's going on and is really just putting himself in a good place to defend the cap. No other enemy team in chat is like, hey, just stay in our cap. He's got to come to it to have the chance. He's got to come to you you do not have to be aggressive, because that's the St. Louis mindset right now. If you're that ship, all you gotta do is sit and be patient. And you can see he takes a cheeky shot at where Griffin was last spotted, and I do this too, because sometimes if you get a shell close enough to a destroyer, they'll forget that they know when they're spotted and just start shooting, thinking they're detected. Oh, I gotta fire. People are shooting at me. And you can spook some people into the return fire. Now, Griffin being very careful with that detection range and using the silent, sneaks in. Now, he's in the enemy cap, as we discussed, to close this point difference. 2 minutes. That's all he needs. There's 4 minutes left on the clock, so if he can stay here, they win. And this is definitely a tense moment. If I'm Griffin, what I would be doing is more or less sit where you are, have your finger ready on that engine boost key, and just get ready to play Ring Around the Rosie. The Cleveland's going to get spotted one way or the other when it comes around the island. Have that speed boost ready to just get out. Now, thankfully, he still does have one smoke left. He hasn't used them much this battle, and because he hasn't been relying on them, hasn't needed that premium consumable. You'd definitely be in a rough situation here if you chose not to bring that, and the one extra smoke would save the game. And I think he kind of realizes he can't commit to one direction. And he's kind of just jockeying back and forth, just waiting, trying to play chicken with the St. Louis. You don't really want to be the ship to round the corner first with, a full head of steam, because, ships don't stop. And so often you see players try to play ships like it's tanks and just rock back and forth on a corner. That doesn't work. You have to stay behind the corner, try to lob your shells over it. Now, so far, St. Louis still not spotted, and this would be tense. RPF would definitely be your friend in this situation, because you'd either know he's coming one way or the other. You can see Griff there just kind of checking the torpedo down. Maybe he'll get lucky, maybe not, but it can't hurt. And with the relatively quick reload on these torps, there's no problem. The only issue, because they are single fire, you can see he has to hit F if he wants to reload them. So he's only got 2 tubes remaining, and well, he chooses to use another one, other edge of land, unfortunately putting it right into the rocks. And as the 2-minute time interval elapses, he's now in the lead. It may be a small one, only 2 points, but it's enough. Pops the engine boost, time to get going. And with that, I'm just going to pop to post battle, because that is the game. And that end was very smartly played by Griffin Keeper. He knew they didn't have to get the kill to get the win. He probably could have just held his fire completely, snuck into the cap, done exactly what he did, just use the island for cover. The St. Louis has to come charging. If he does, throw the torps, use the smoke, do what you got to do to stay alive and get out. Either way, won it, no problem. Put the team on his back and fixed a mistake another DD made. 120,000 credits, 3,500 XP, 52,000 damage, and the Kraken. And that's good enough for top a team, just over 1,000 XP there. And you can see not a lot else happened in this game other than an allied ship helping the enemy team out there. And so often with the way that works, the allied ship goes down too. And when you look at the damage, yeah, there's not huge numbers, and you can get games with better numbers, but really this was about the result. He got the kills where he needed to. He did do some decent damage to that Terren, and really just made sure he was alive late game to make the difference. And if you're in a destroyer, that's what you want to be doing. You can impact early game, but don't throw yourself away at a cap, because it's late game where you can take over. 1v1 against a cruiser, battleship, you have the advantage. Even if they have a radar, you just have to be aware of that radar range, stay outside of it, and you're safe. In the end, took home 115,000 credits, 3,500 XP, and you can see standard account, so that team score XP probably a little lower than you might expect, and a good game. He carried this for his team. Anyways, thank you very much, Griffin Keeper, for sending this in. I enjoyed watching it. I hope everyone else did. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I am Qckslvrslash. I'll have another one for you all later.